Okay. So first we're gonna start with the Palestine situation, and maybe later we can go into like socialism versus communism and all that stuff. The reason I want to choose the Palestine situation is because a lot of people are dying right now, and we want to prevent that the best we can. The way I like to do these videos is before we start a conversation, we have to have a common goal, or else we're just going to be facts, facts, argument, argument. The common goal that I usually give is we want to limit and prevent Palestinian civilian death. Is that a goal that you would agree with, that we could both agree on?
Yeah, if I could just add to that, it's Palestinian death, but also Jewish death too. It's like I don't want anyone to die, right? So it's I think like the common goal should be, just to try and avoid all death and maybe just try to find a peaceful solution to this.
Um, you said that you had some thoughts that society might look down upon, or you feel like you don't feel fully comfortable saying them. What were some of those thoughts that you felt like you have this need to express about the situation?
Right. So I I'm born and raised in New York. I've spent my whole life around Jewish people, and up until recently, I've never had issues with anyone who was with the Zionist movement or people of the Jewish belief. Um, since October 7th, um, my views, it's not like overall, like I don't consider what's going on there like as like a Jewish issue. I think this is a strictly Zionist issue, and it's very disturbing and it's troubling because as this unfolds and progresses, I think it's being handled poorly is an understatement. I think what's going on is it's not going to end well for anyone, especially Zionists. And unfortunately, and I really, don't want to see this, but like I don't see this ending well for Israel because what's going on is, and it's open and it's like, it's not even like trying to be like, hidden, and like there's like political um rhetoric behind what's going on, but like from what I'm seeing and from like what's being reported um, in Gaza, it's genocide, and um, I'm I'm troubled and disturbed by what I see on American media and um, how it's downplayed and how it's it's really one-sided. Um, just to briefly just go over some numbers. Since October 7th, as of today, they say that the death rate is at 21,731 Palestinians dead.
Okay.
That that number is more than 9/11, Pearl Harbor, and Vietnam combined. And like this happened since like October. So like, it's really disturbing and like troubling to like think like how much death can happen in such a small like time frame. And you know like the reasoning that I'm hearing from your side is it's Hamas, it's terrorists, it's like we're trying to wipe out Hamas and terrorism from our region, and like it's motivated by living a safe and non-terror life, but like in reality Zionists are the terrorists. Like that's a lot of murder. That's a lot of death. Like, and who are like, who are you guys fighting? Like, who are you killing? Like over here, 8,677 kids since October, 4,410 women since October.
What's
And
the
like,
amount? What's the amount of kids again?
uh, it's 8,677.
Okay.
and this was updated today. Now, again, how accurate are these numbers? I'm going off of what I'm reading online. I can't verify that, that's a factual number, but I'm sure it's pretty close. Um, you know, I
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah, so like I try, like I really, really try, especially in the beginning, to stay neutral and to try and understand, like, both sides and like what's going on. But like the more this unfolds, it's like, it's very hard for me not to be pro-Palestine. And like, I don't have any affiliation with Palestinian people. I don't believe in any organized beliefs or religion, but I am a human, and I do have morals and values that I live by. And what I see going on over there, it's an atrocity. And I don't understand, like, where or how, the Zionist movement can actually sit down and have a conversation and try to like legitimize this. So like I'm really hoping that, like, you can maybe help me understand, like, or provide some reasoning to this amount of death and this amount of murder of people who can't even defend themselves. I mean, it's just like, Israel, they have a military that's really advanced. It's one of the most advanced militaries in the world. And, just to back up a bit, and then I'll let you speak. I'm sorry for, taking up so much of the
Well,
conversation here.
the whole point of this was so I could get your full viewpoint. So it's
Yeah,
okay.
okay, awesome, awesome. So this is what bothers me most. Not long ago, in the 40s, like this Austrian psychopath nearly wiped Judaism off the map. Like he was very close. And I don't care what your viewpoint is of Jewish people, you have to respect their rebound and how they overcame the Holocaust, right? As a whole, I think it's I think they're brilliant people. I think, they're a close-knit community and they take care of each other, which is rare, right? Um, you know, on a global scale, Judaism ranks 11 just in terms of like population size and presence uh, around the globe. 11th. Uh, Islam is ranked number 2, and it's predicted to surpass Christianity by 2034. It's Pew Research Center predicts that they will be the largest religion in the world by 2034. And the point of this is for a group that went through and experienced tremendous loss and nearly was extinct, like, and, in a very short period of time, managed to like not just like rebound and, um, start to build, their population again, but thrived, like really thrived. And like, it's it's stunning, and it's truly like amazing to see how productive and how much was accomplished in such a small period of time. And I would like, and I've always like thought and believed it's because of what they went through and the trauma experience and just, all that death and loss. It was what motivated them, to be the best they can be. And
It's a good
again,
theory. It's not. I'm just gonna cut you off there.
sure, 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 sure.
It's a good theory. I don't think that's the reason why. And we could go into that after you finish.
Yeah,
But yeah, continue
yeah, but
because
just
there are a lot of cultures that were just as bad as suffering, and they're not at the level that they are. So we could go into that later.
yeah, but what stands out about the about Jews is it's like, it's not a large population, globally, and it's like it's a small population that was, nearly wiped out, and it was a small group of people that, had to build up again. Anyway, my point is, having gone through that and having experienced that and having accomplished so much, how can you go and basically do exactly what happened to you to like this group of people. And it's I try to find some reasoning behind it. And yes, like terrorism, like that is a valid reason to want to defend yourself, to want to protect, your homeland and your future and your people. But, you know, there's a line, there's like a line in the sand where like you just don't cross. Like, you can accomplish all that without murdering 21,000 people. And it's just like, what's your end goal? Like, you want to say you're trying to flush out Hamas, but like Hamas does not represent the entire Palestinian population, right? It's a small group of people within the Palestinian community. And
Are you sure about that?
no, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but like, I don't think that Hamas consists of all Palestinians, but
The
maybe.
group Hamas, no. The supporters, we could talk about that later,
Sure,
but
sure.
yeah, we could talk about that later.
So why don't you chime in? Give me some feedback on what I've said so far. Let me hear your thoughts.
Um, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about everything that you said. Um, but I wanna go into, so like you're it sounds like you're in a state of like a bit of confusion about what's going on, but also a state of like
I'm not
hatred.
confused. Like, yeah,
Okay,
like, yeah, like, look,
anger for what the
it's well,
Jews, what the Israel is doing.
yes, yes, that's fair.
Okay. Um, and you're watching all of this death and like this needless death and this destruction. And it hurts, and you feel bad for the Palestinians who are dying. And you said 21,000 of them. Um,
Since October.
over, yeah, and more are dying every day. Um, yeah, so I want to make sure before I go into like some of my viewpoints, I want to make sure. Is there anything like about what you said that you feel like me as somebody who's more pro-Israel? Is there something that you feel like I know you want to get my viewpoint, but before I talk about my
Oh,
viewpoint, is there
sure, of
anything
course,
that you
yeah.
feel like I don't understand about what you said?
I'm kind of jumping around like all over the place a bit here. I'm just trying to, get in as much as I'm trying to in this short time we have. I think you you heard everything that I was saying. I mean, it's all pretty much factually based, except for the Hamas statement. You might teach me something there, but just in terms of like body counts and just time frames and what's going on, and like this is what what really is like disturbing, not just for me, but it's like on like a global scale. It's I feel that it's like, Israel is not being like truthful and upfront about what's really like going on. Like there's a lot of propaganda, and I think you know mixed media that's driven by Israel. And like for instance, like if you put on like the news here and you don't see what's really happening on US media. Like, like I go to like Telegram and I watch like you know uh, uh news outlets from from Israel and from Palestine, and like people who are like on the ground, and like and it's real footage. And the only thing I seem to hear on CNN or Fox or whatever is just about these hostages who were kidnapped, and about like the same couple of people who were like murdered on October 7th, which is horrible. But it's just like, you know, at what point like is like enough? It's like what Hamas did is awful, right? But it's like what Israel is doing is like that's not just a response, dude. Like that's like it's it's like 100 times worse, 1,000 times worse, 21,000 times worse. You know what I'm saying? And like that's what's really like,
All right.
disturbing.
So
Sorry.
I'll jump in now. The data that you gave me, all like almost everything there, like I knew already because I've been doing like a lot of research in these
Of course.
interviews. And the only reason I'm cutting in is because you're um like talking more about like the needless death. And
Mm,
I trust me, I have a pretty good picture. I've spoken to people. I've spoken to
yeah.
people who lost family, like Palestinian family. So I understand the the devastation that's going on there. Obviously, I don't live there, and you're right about the media blackout. I noticed with the Ukraine war, when Ukraine was doing pretty well, they showed a lot of footage, but now, well, recently they kind of had a blackout. They don't want you to know exactly how bad it is because it's fucking horrible. Same thing with Israel. They got troops on the ground in Gaza. It's bad. It's really bad. So, and they don't want you to see exactly how bad it is. And you're right about some of the Israeli propaganda. They're giving water to like the kids and stuff. It's obvious propaganda. Both sides have um, propaganda. There's Bollywood, which Palestine has. Like they fake a lot of the uh, footage too, and
Mhm.
so both sides do it. Um, you asked how is any of this possible? What I like to do is I like to put myself into the perspective of people, individual
Mhm.
people, but also a collective people. So I try to put my consciousness into like the people of Gaza, what it's like, how they're feeling, how much anger they have, why they have that anger, but also to the Israeli side, and I try to fully understand it. Um, the more of these interviews that I'm doing, I'm becoming more pro Israeli, but also more pro Palestine, like both,
Oh,
because yeah,
you're becoming more pro-Israeli, but at the
yeah,
same time
yeah,
also pro-Palestine.
because I'm
But
understanding both perspectives
gotcha,
more.
gotcha. But
Yeah.
but you initially started pro-Israel though. That was
Yeah,
your
more pro-Israel. Yeah, yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
So I understand both sides, and the more I understand both sides, the more I'm like, we have to stop this killing. So let me see. I want you mentioned the media is not talking enough about. Almost all the media is against Israel. CNN,
And
MSNBC, um, Washington Post, they all hate Zionism, all of them. The only one that's supporting Israel is Fox. So
mhm,
Israel has they fucked up on the propaganda game. They have almost nobody on the side except right wing extremist Fox. Though
mhm.
that's the only people who are on their side.
Which is why I mentioned earlier, and it's very concerning because I just don't see how Israel can, walk away from this, like, and not be damaged, because it's a lot
With
of
the help of
death.
the U.S. military, with the help of the U.S., that's why they're doing this because they have them as an ally. Whether it's right or wrong, look, um, what they're doing is even too much for me. Not only because of the people who are dying, but mostly because like, where do you think this is going to end? The only way you would do this is if like you have the full guarantee from the U.S. That like your hands are going to be clean, right?
But
Uh,
yeah, but I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, that was their strength initially, but it's like, dude, they're really pushing the envelope, and like, you can even see it in like Biden and like, the way he talks about these like issues. He's of course pro-Israel, but Israel's putting him in a corner. It's just like how much can you support genocide and when is enough, you know, uh, enough, right? And it's like, it's the US, it's the UK, and it's for political reasons that supports Israel. It's like every other nation, every other country in the world is not against Israel, but they're against genocide, right? And they all, I think, agree that like, what's going on is just awful, and it has to be stopped.
So let's talk about the genocide
Sure.
then, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because I notice everybody has different definitions. The UN has a has a definition of genocide. The United States government has one. The leftists have one, and it's different than what me and you think. The
sure.
genocide that happened in like Rwanda or the Holocaust is different than what what communists think is genocide. It's different. They're two different things. I talked to a leftist who thinks that genocide is when one nation just has more money than the other one. That's genocide to them. Yeah, I know. So everybody, and then they're like, Israel is genociding the Palestinians, and you're like, well, what do you define as genocide? Then they say that, and you're like, really? But so everybody has a different definition. What would be your definition of genocide?
Genocide, in my opinion, is like ethnic cleansing. It's what the Jews experienced, but on a much larger scale, like during the Holocaust, right? Like millions died. Okay.
So
Millions of
you
Palestinians.
define genocide as deaths,
No, no, not just death. It's the like extermination of a certain group of people. And I think that's what's happening to the Palestinian people.
but
Because
why? Like,
not just because of 21,000 murders, it's because of 21,000 murders since October. Like that amount of death in such a short span of time,
but it's
it's
war.
kind of
It's
hard.
war.
Huh? It's not
It's
war.
war.
It's not war. No, no. The war is when war is fighting someone who can defend themselves. Women, dude, what was the number? 8,677 kids. That's
I want
not
to
war.
talk about that. I want to talk
But
about
that's
that.
not
No,
war, man.
I want to talk about
Yeah.
the kids thing. I want to talk about
Yeah.
the kids thing. Um, by the way, we could have this conversation. Like, I'll give you the time, right? You don't need to like, we're just here to talk. We're
Okay.
gonna go over some details. I'm with you with I don't want any more violence.
Mhm.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Yeah, we're gonna get there. So there was the 21,000 number, right? And that's the one that's being shown like on all media. Whatever number that the Ministry of Health of Palestine gives, that's the one that the media goes with. How many of those were combatants?
Children?
No, no, no.
Oh,
How
no,
many
I'm
of the
sorry, the
21,000?
21,000.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea. I
Okay,
have no,
why don't you have an idea?
because all I'm looking at is women
Yeah.
and children. Yeah,
No,
those
no,
are
no.
the numbers that I'm seeing.
You because none of the media is giving you the combatant number. Why do you think that is? So you could get angry. You're not thinking about the combatants. They're like 21,000 people, 8,000 children. You do realize that if you're 17 years old and you're part of Hamas, you're considered a child. Did you know that?
But I think that number, like of seven, like the actual number of 17 year olds fighting with Hamas isn't the majority of that
It's not.
8,000.
It's not. No, no. There are people who are not part of Hamas. You're right. Hamas is it's only like like tens of thousands. It's not like not. I don't even know if it reaches like 100,000. It's not huge. It's a few like a few 10,000, tens of thousands of people. It's not the majority of the people of Gaza at all.
Mhm.
So you're right. You're right about that.
Yeah. And just real quick, just to touch on numbers and what you mentioned, how the US, supports Israel pretty much no matter what. Um, again, on the grand scale, these are my thoughts, my beliefs, my fears. And this is why I think what you're doing with these conversations is so important. It's so important to have this dialogue, and for people to hear this dialogue and have constructive criticism and to educate people, right? Because if you look at, Islam as a whole, it's a very large group of people. And, you know, like I'll give a hypothetical. Like if the Arabs were to like, get their shit together and come together and like, actually like look out for each other, dude, Israel would have a really, really difficult time. But
No, it wouldn't, because for the Muslim world to come together, they would have to put aside their differences. They haven't shown that they could do that.
which
They just keep fighting
no,
each
they
other.
can't do it. They can't
Yeah,
do it.
they
They can't
can't.
do it.
So
Yeah,
once
but like
if they unify, they wouldn't see Israel as a threat anymore. If they have the ability to put their differences aside, they would put their differences aside with Israel. Because
mhm,
Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, all of them have put a lot of their differences aside to make peace with
mhm,
Israel. And that's why there's less fighting now with them, with those countries.
hmm. So again, my fear, and it's it's not, me being pro-Israel. It's again pro-people, and I don't want to see anybody wiped off of the map. But like my fear is if this continues, you know, anger worldwide is going to continue to grow and spread, and people are going to stop trying to make sense of this. And hopefully what you're saying is true, and like they can't unify because if Israel keeps wiping out the Palestinian population, it's like I would like to think that at some point some Arab country is going to say, hey, let's try and help them before they're
Well,
every.
the other Arab nations, they don't give a shit about
I
Gaza
know,
or
I see
Palestine.
this.
So
Yeah,
why
I
would they? They just want to take the land for themselves. They had Jordan and Egypt. They had the occupied territories. They were occupying the same way Israel was, and they they didn't give them their freedom because they don't care about them. They just want the land too. Muslims, like they hate each other just as much as like other countries. Like they're split off too. They can't even
mm,
unify. I would love for them to unify because the only way you can unify is through understanding and peace. That's the only way. If you unify through hate, like it's more difficult because Nazi Germany and Russia unified and the Soviet Union unified. And then they
mm,
started attacking, and then Germany just attacked them. You can't
right.
unify through hate and conquest. It's not going to work.
But do you think that that the US is able to back Israel if this keeps progressing
I don't want it to. I want the peace now. I don't
yeah,
want to think about if Israel keeps doing this. I want to stop this now. I want
mhm.
to stop this now. But the way that we stop it is the anger that you feel like all the Muslim countries are feeling towards Israel now. It's nothing new. It's the reason the bombings are happening was because of anger towards Israel before October 7. All
Mhm.
the anger, Israel, they pulled out their troops out of Gaza, right? Whoever's saying that it's occupying it is wrong. They pulled out all their
Yeah,
troops, then they pulled out all the civilians, and they pulled out the Israelis in the graves. They pulled everybody out of Gaza.
hold on. Can you repeat that once more? So you're saying the Palestinian people did this?
Did what? Oh, this? No. Well, the Palestinian, the Hamas
Yeah,
did it.
Hamas,
Yeah.
yes.
So here's how it happened. They all pulled out, right? Israel pulled everybody out, and the Palestinian. I don't think it was a Palestinian Authority. So there's a Palestinian Authority, but then Hamas took over, and you know I'm not gonna go into details exactly how they took
But
power.
that I agree with you 100%. I don't think the Palestinians are capable of governing themselves properly. I mean, like if let's just say hypothetically that like magically they like everyone disappeared and like they got to keep their land there, I don't think they would progress much. But it doesn't mean that they deserve to be like killed off like this. But let's go back to what you were saying because this is interesting because I I'm under the impression that all this anger is coming from um, uh, Israelis occupying, their land, their homes, because you see these videos of these Jewish families going basically just evicting people. I would
Well,
even call
why are they being evicted? You show me the video of the eviction. Why was that woman being evicted?
it. I don't know.
All right, but so
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to show. They're doing this on purpose to make you angry. They didn't tell you why she was being evicted. What if she didn't pay her rent for the past 5 months? In a lot of countries, and no, in a lot of cities in the US, if you don't pay rent, sometimes you can't
no,
evict
no,
a
no.
person. So we
But
don't
I'm pretty sure that was her home because it said that she lived there for 70 years, 7 decades. I don't think she was paying rent to anybody. I think
if
that
she
was,
owned a home, she can't be evicted unless she stops paying like property tax or
yeah.
something.
So, yeah, so maybe evicted was the wrong word, but like, the message being displayed is uh, Israelis are going into Palestine and throwing people out of their homes and just taking their homes.
Well,
To,
that was Jerusalem. That's one. Two, um, you could find hundreds of examples where the Israelis are actually doing more good for the people, the Muslim people in Israel. Like I've
Mhm.
been to Israel.
Yep.
They get along very, very well. There's a few extremists on both sides. The extremists, the settlers, and like Muslim extremists who cause problems for everybody.
Mm.
But they get along very well. Most of the Muslims who live inside Israel, they would not want to live in another Muslim country. And if you ask them, do you feel like there's apartheid? They, the majority of them say no. The ones
Mhm,
who say yes, who live in Israel, when asked how is it apartheid, none of them could answer. None of them. They say checkpoints, but
mhm,
they're different checkpoints based on the terror threat from the region. So it's
mhm.
not based on your religion, it's based on a level of terror threat.
Okay.
So that's one thing to understand. So with your when you're on these websites,
Mm,
they are telling the truth. She was evicted. Why did she get evicted? The other thing that you said with those kids, I'm not surprised if there are teachers who teach that garbage, that
mhm.
dangerous garbage. What you show me, like I was disgusted by it because I know how the majority of Jews that I know are would never believe anything
No,
like that.
right. I know.
So, but if we look at little instances,
Mhm.
then we could see then we project that this is the majority of the Israeli people, and then we see the violence that's going on, and we start thinking like, why can't the Muslim countries just get together and destroy Israel? Well, the reason
Not
why the you
destroy Israel. Yeah. Like, like again, like no matter like if I'm pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, whatever, I don't want to see anybody destroyed, right? Like unless they're true, genuine terrorists, like I don't want to see anybody, destroyed. Like, people have a right to live, and I think people, shouldn't have to freaking go through what civilians in Palestine are going through right now. Regardless of the fact of what the propaganda is, at the end of the day there is a lot of, and I'm not going to say killing, it's murder going on. Like, yes, war, when Israeli soldiers are fighting with Hamas fighters, that's war. Shooting missiles into hospitals, that's not war, bro. That's murder.
so why is it okay when Gaza
It's not good.
shoots the missiles into
Not
Israel, into the
okay. It's
hospitals?
not okay at all. It's not okay at all. But Gaza isn't killing 21,000 people,
If they had the capability, they would.
Oh, listen, no doubt. But like that's where, I think not just Israel, but the world is fortunate is they don't have the capability. And like realistically, like they don't really like they can't really like defend themselves. You know what
But
I'm
how did
saying?
they
Like,
how did they get these missiles even though there's a blockade on Gaza? How did they get these missiles?
are you talking about like recently from the
Yeah.
because Joe Biden gave Iran uh, all that money back that was frozen, and I think Iran took that money and went straight to
They've
Hamas.
been they've been building up they've had the missiles before that money came in. They had it in 2021 also. They get the supplies. They're like boats that just drop off supplies for like Iran and stuff. They drop the supplies and then the Hamas they just like pick up the materials and stuff from the water or
Mhm,
whatever. They smuggle it in through Egypt. They find ways of smuggling it in, and that's why. Imagine if Israel did not have a blockade. How many
mhm.
missiles? They would be like Hezbollah with
Yeah.
like precision guided missiles and all and surface missiles that like because they just want to exterminate the Jews. And you're saying like yeah they don't have the capability. You're right, but they had the capability to do October 7th. And if it was just October 7th, it would have been a tragedy. But the Israel like we want to talk about solutions. Let's talk about solutions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
let's talk
sure.
about solutions
Yeah.
because I feel like we have a decent enough understanding of the
Right,
situation.
right. But it like
Um,
again, like it's a conversation that we can go back and forth for like hours. But I do want to hear your perspective because you have had a lot of discussions about this specifically and with both sides. So selfishly, I would like just to hear like your viewpoints on what you think could be a solution, what can't work, and what shouldn't works. And yeah.
this so there I noticed that there are two. I'll try to quickly. I'll try to summarize the best that I can because it's such a complex question. But I like that you're asking it, and I appreciate it. There are two sides to people who support. From what I've seen, there are two sides who support Palestine. There is the communists, like the socialists, and then there's the people who just want people to stop dying. It seems like you're more of that side who just want the
Right.
Palestinians to stop dying. It seems like it. Um, there are two different solutions for that. The solution for the communist ones is to destroy Israel, and that they want to destroy it the same way they want to destroy the United States, and that's why the communists almost always align with Islam because
Mhm.
Muslims want the extremists they want to destroy the United States and Israel. The extremists, not all of the Muslims. Um, and then there's you, people like you who just want the suffering to end. I think that's more feasible than destroying Israel and the United. Well, is the United States will be destroyed by the left. It's just going to take a few more years. So that's happening in the background.
Mhm.
To stop the death, um, we have to see the reality.
Mhm.
We have to see the reality. When you were saying 21,000 plus civilian deaths,
It's just
how
hard
many
to
of them?
process.
What?
It's just very difficult to process that, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
it's difficult to process it, but we also have to process how many of those were at war combatants, how many of those were supporting Hamas,
Mhm.
how many of the kids were supporting Hamas. That's one. The gen the genocide. We had to agree on a genocide. I see gen. Okay, the solution.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good, man. It's good.
There is there is the solution that you would want is one that's going to lead Israel to allow more attacks and more attacks and more attacks until 2 years later, Hamas does another October 7, and we're going to be right back here. Except it's going to be even worse than what's
Mm.
happening now because I was watching the videos of interviews of Israelis and Palestinians by Corey, I think. He does
Mm.
an amazing job. They have so much hate for the majority of the population. If and you've cited Pew Research, look at
Mm.
their research on what the Palestinians think. They think the Palestinians think the same way that the college students do.
Mm.
The college students in the United States, I think 50% of them
The
are
kids,
okay
man.
with killing Jews.
Mm.
They don't they can't condemn October 7th. And if that's the university
Which is
student,
wrong, which is
yeah.
wrong.
And if that's the university students who don't even live in Gaza, imagine how much hate the people of Gaza have for Israel. They teach them in schools, in public schools, that if you kill somebody who's Jewish, that's the most moral thing that you could do. And if you die for Palestine by
Jesus.
killing Jews,
Jesus.
you go to heaven.
This is a fact.
Yeah. This is what they're teaching them. They teach them when they're young by the
Jihad,
parents, and
basically.
then yeah, and then they teach them in schools. But that's happened after I think October, no, not October, after 2005 when Hamas like really started taking over the schools and stuff. So the people they create this curriculum, and also there's something called pay for slay, which is you get benefits based on the amount of Jews that you kill. So
Oh,
if you in Gaza, yeah, and we could track the money. The money's tracked. This is a known fact. So if you're raising extremists, telling them that you're
wait,
going to go
so
to
who's funding this? Hamas?
Iran, it seems like Iran is funding a lot of this, and the UN is funding this.
The UN is funding the the um the pay for slay of Jewish people?
So the UN funds resources and
Mm.
Hamas could do whatever they want with those resources. And so, from what I heard, they sell it on the black market. They get money, and then they use that money to fund materials um, to pay for these kind of programs. So Gaza, Palestine is one of the most well-funded regions on the planet. They get billions upon billions. It's one of the most well-funded refugee populations on the planet.
You said it's called pay for slay. I'm just going to make a
Yeah,
quick note
pay
so I
for
can
slay. Yeah,
look this
you
up.
could look it up.
UN funding. Okay. And you said Hamas is one of the most well-funded refugee
Palestine is.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
Palestine.
yeah.
Right now, or it's always
Right
been
now,
like right now?
it's been like that recently. Yeah.
But is that money getting to them? Like, is there really aid getting to them, or
Oh no, they're getting aid. Oh, well, at least before they were getting Palestine was getting aid. They were getting some of the best aid. Israel gave them some of the best aid actually. They gave them they had a problem with the fresh water because Israel bombed them like in 2021, bombed them really hard after Hamas sent even more rockets. And now Israel's supplying them with the fresh water. They could cut it off too. I don't think they've done that yet, but they cut off the electricity. But they've been
Mm.
supplying them with the electricity too. It's like the second Hamas stops sending rockets and stops terrorizing Israel, we have peace.
So
Israel doesn't
that
have to
hap
do any of this.
so that happens realistically and honestly logically is when Israel pretty much gets Palestinians and Palestine out of that region because
No,
it's like you can like how are you going to flush out a group of terrorists who are basically chameleons and like they live within the Palestinian community. It's like can you really flush them out? Like, is that really like a possibility? Like, do you know every Hamas member? You know what I'm saying? So like, what's the number? Like, when like do you think like, oh, okay, I think we got all of them now, right?
it's the Hamas members, but there are other groups in Palestine that none of them are pro peace. Almost none of them are they like because indoctrination is so strong, you're going to find very few people who would actually want a two-state solution. Some do, and then some don't, and then there is the extremists who just are going to destroy everything for their own people.
Let me ask you this: what is Netanyahu's end goal to get rid of Palestine? Like, do you believe like that's what he's ultimately after? Because like and if so, like I'm not saying it's right. I think Netanyahu. Well, I'm not going to get into that, but it's at least something that I can grasp and try to understand because you know, like the way I'm perceiving things now is just like I think they're just trying to kill all Palestinians.
No, they're
Um,
not. They're not.
they're
They're
not.
really not. They're really because well before October 7, like I've talked to people, they could have done this at any point.
Ooh,
They
Israel.
Israel,
Mm.
Netanyahu, they could have done this at any point, but they didn't because they continue to try to pursue peace over and over and over again. They've had multiple ceasefires. You see all the protests asking for ceasefires. There
Mhm.
was a ceasefire in 2021. Hamas broke it. There were multiple ceasefires. Hamas breaks it every single time. They've never agreed to any peace agreement ever.
They
So it
haven't.
Palestine, no.
So
Um,
so like realistically, is there a two-state solution or like is this just empty rhetoric?
I think that talk enough to if the both sides get together and we talk enough about the way like I'm trying to talk to you, like in the
Mm,
beginning where I was like, I want to fully listen to you. I don't
mm,
think that anybody has ever done that with any of the Muslim people, the Muslim people in charge of Palestine, where it's like, I'm gonna listen to your entire life story, exactly why you hate Jews so much. I'm gonna listen to everything and fully understand you and understand like why you had this, and I want to make you feel safer.
mm,
Um, I think if we have that, then
mm.
we could have peace that way. The two-state solution could only work if the Muslims wanted, but the reasons they don't is not because of uh, what's happening now or 2021 or even 1970. No, it's about what happened even before the 1920s. It's about
Mm.
this hate for anybody who's non-Muslim. They hate the Jews just as much as the extremists. Not all the people of Palestine. I know the difference between extremists and people who aren't.
Mm.
They want Israel dead just as much as the United States dead, just as much as gay people dead, or anybody who doesn't fully align with their version of Muslim ideology
You're
or
talking
Sharia law.
right about extremists, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the extremists, they're the ones who hold the power. They're the ones who decided to pull the trigger on October 7th. And they're the reason why Gaza is being destroyed right now.
And
But
that's unfortunate. And they're the ones who are hiding and letting other people die over this. But um again, this is not like the first conversation people are having over this. I think this has been attempted multiple times. And I try to be a realist and I try to, just not beat around the bush. I'm not sure if a two-state solution can exist. I think I'm still going to hold my belief here, and I don't think what Israel is doing currently is right. I think they I think they need to figure out a way to live independently of each other, whether, that's Israel, taking, you know, more land there or whatever the case is. I just don't see how Palestinians and Israelis can live side
If
by
we
side.
have that mindset, then Israel, then just with that logic, Israel will feel like it's justified to do what it's doing because it's like, okay, no peace, we're just going to destroy you.
Well,
That's why I'm searching for peace. We have to look. I'll tell you one example, then you'll tell me what you think of this.
sure, sure.
I had one interview with a girl who didn't do any interviews with people like me,
Mhm.
who are more conservative and more pro-Israel. No interviews, and she thought that all white Jewish people, they're all evil, and you can't talk to them, and they're not able to have like a logic, like a conversation where we could talk about like emotions and how we feel, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of the interview, she's like, "I was wrong about that. You actually seem like you're not evil." And
Wait,
just
she
yeah,
genuinely like believed that all white Jewish people were evil. Like that was her
she
belief.
she believed anybody who's like pro-Israel, all the Zionists, they're all evil, all of them, completely evil.
I don't believe that all Zionists are evil. I just think they have an agenda, and I think what they're ultimately trying to do is look out for their people at any means necessary, even at the expense of death. Because at the end of the day, and it's not just videos that I've seen; it's interviews with former world leaders who, at the time they were in power, they really didn't have the freedom to truly express what they were seeing and what they were feeling. But I'm sure you've seen like the Jimmy Carter interviews, and basically how like he broke down just the Palestinian situation from when he was president. And
I didn't see that. I didn't
I'll
see it,
send
but
you
I could.
like,
Yeah,
but
I'll look it up.
it's like Jimmy Carter, he's a Democrat, he's left, but it's like, there you do, no matter what your political stance is, there is like it's a point where you have to actually listen to what he's saying, because it's, you can't make all that shit up, right? And you know there was a lot of pain like in his voice, and like like regret almost for not being able to like do more or like help more. And like you say there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of hate in the Palestinians, but like um and you said it goes back to like before like the 1920s, and that I can see. But what's been going on the last like 40, 50 years, it's their anger is not justified. Like I don't believe anyone should have like feel that they have the right to retaliate and murder anyone, no matter what the situation is. But like doing this, like enforcing this level of violence, no matter what you're trying to
You
accomplish,
you
dude, you're
asked
gonna
me
create.
you asked me why anybody would justify what Israel is doing. I don't really justify it, but I'll tell you why some
Yeah,
people might.
sure.
Um, it's not only because of what the terrorist attacks that Palestine has been doing on Israel, but also when there was the refugee crisis, they went into Jordan, they caused a
Mhm.
civil war there and killed the king over there, and then
The
thousands of
Palestinians or
the
Hamas.
Palestinians. No,
Yeah.
no, no. This was like dozens of years ago. This was like a long time ago.
Mhm.
And they killed the king, and then there was a civil war there. They had to kick them out. So the Palestinians went to Lebanon. They started. That's where Hezbollah started, and they caused another civil war in Lebanon. And then they
Mm.
went to Syria and caused another
Yeah,
civil war in Syria. Wherever they go,
I can't argue with you there. Like, and it's facts are facts, but like Palestinians, they're not very popular, even amongst Arab people.
yeah,
Again, and it's like I don't have any connections or biases towards Palestine. And again, this is just like a human rights issue
yes,
with me. But I don't think that and this is it's going to sound bad, but like I don't think Palestinians are capable of governing themselves. I don't think, obviously, not with Hamas in
they
power.
are capable of it. It's just not the government that we want. This is their government. They want Sharia law. They got Sharia law. They got the government that that they wanted.
Vis-a-vis Hamas, correct?
They elected
Hamas
Hamas.
is
They elected Hamas.
enforcing this
The
Shira law,
the
right?
the people elected Hamas, and they want the people want Sharia law.
This is
Not
interesting.
all of them, not all of them, but this is what the majority of the population is what creates the government. The government
Mhm.
doesn't create the people, we create the government. The only government that I see that's really screwing all their citizens over and has true control is like North Korea. That's the only one that I see that has full control over its people. Everything else, the people are creating the government based on their beliefs, whether it's beliefs of victim mentality, full-blown victim mentality, or full-blown nationalism, whatever. That creates the governing bodies. If you were Israel and you were in the situation that you were getting bombed this way, and every time you try to create a peace deal, you thought you finally had peace after 2021. You had a ceasefire. You thought you finally had peace. And then you get attacked on October 7th, and nothing has ever worked. What I'm just curious, what would you
Yeah,
do?
sure,
This
sure.
isn't a way, yeah, this isn't a way for you to, by the way, this isn't a way for me to be like, gotcha. It's not that. I'm
No,
actually
no, no.
curious.
So, dude, listen, this is, and again, this is really important. These questions that you're asking, and like, and I really implore you to put everyone you interview on the spot and ask them this question because it truly makes you think, right? And like, because it's so easy just to, think what you think is right and just look at things from your perspective. But like, asking me what I would do if I'm Israel, I can honestly say I wouldn't. I don't think Netanyahu is um is a good leader. And I would not do what he's doing because I think again he has an agenda, and his agenda I don't think is it's it's for the Israeli, and it's for the Israeli best interest, but it's at the expense of an entire freaking um Palestinian population. Um, I'm sorry, to answer your question, I don't know what I would do, to be honest, but I don't think that I would resort to this level of violence. Like, no matter what, at the end of the day, since October 7th, that's a huge number, and it's getting worse, and it's growing
But let's say
faster.
they
And
stop. Let's say they stop.
sure,
Right now,
sure.
they stopped the bombing. Like in 2021, they stopped. They asked for a ceasefire. Obviously, it
And
didn't work. So let's say
mm,
let's say Netanyahu's like, okay, let's listen to Val. We stop. Now what?
and this is again, it's not going to sound pretty, but I'm not here to sound pretty. I know, you know, you want to be optimistic and believe that they can coexist. I think that they've tried that one too many times, and I like you said, I think there's too much hate there, and and it's not one sided because it's you know, you can't say that it's just Palestinians that hate Israelis. There's a lot of Israeli hate towards Palestinians too. That goes both ways. And
The second the Palestinians stop bombing them, the hate is almost going to disappear. Not fully, but I'm telling you, the Israelis, they just want the bombings to stop. They were bringing in more Palestinian work visas. They had more Palestinian work visas, like from Gaza, during that 2 year period of ceasefire, because they're
so
like, oh, they stopped bombing. They stopped bombing us. Let's bring them in. Let's increase their economy. Let's help them out. And then they got bombed on October 7th. I'm telling you, Israel just wants peace. This whole thing of like just conquering all of the land,
Mhm.
some of them want that, but the majority of the people, there's a lot of leftists. They don't want it.
um so this like Israeli occupation and just so is it your belief that that doesn't exist, like that's really not happening, or like is it happening a little bit, or is it exaggerated? Because there's plenty of stuff out there that you can watch and that you can read that comes across fairly concrete, right?
West Bank
um
is occupied.
okay,
I don't like occupation.
so now do the Palestinians have a right to be angry?
If the yes, of course they have the right to be angry. But so if we want to go back to like 1948 or before 1948, the Jews were coming in as refugees, right? They were setting up
After
their
World
own
War II.
even before.
Be
Well, yeah, like a little bit before, but then after World War II, it was too much. But even before, there was a lot of Jews that were coming back because they wanted their own land, because there was persecution even before World War II in Europe
mhm,
and all the other and Muslim areas everywhere. They set up their own communities the same way you see in New York. They set up their own communities. They had like communist communities, communes, kibbutzes, whatever. And the Muslims did not like that, and they started attacking them. And because they started
is
attacking
it
them,
Muslims or Palestinians? Yeah,
because the Christians were there were Christian Palestinians, but they didn't attack the
mhm,
Jews. It was just the Muslims. From what I read, um, and it's kind of the same way you see the illegal immigration that's in the United States right now. Just
mhm,
imagine white Americans, they just started like attacking um, people from Mexico and Venezuela, like just killing them. That's what happened in the area of Palestine. And then
mhm,
the British were like, look, these people, they just keep fighting each other. Let's split it because they cannot have peace. So this is
right,
way before what's happening now, the whole peace thing.
mhm.
Um, I think that we could, I think there's definitely a way. I think there's a way where both sides could, I think, stop seeing each other as enemies, but I think it would have to be more on the part of tolerance from the Muslim population of Palestine.
Yeah, can you maybe school me on something because I am a little ignorant on the topic. W- so why did Jews leave their land initially? Like if the theory is that it was um Israeli or Jewish land first, right? Like the Jews were the initial settlers.
Mm.
What happened?
The Romans kicked them out, and I think after that the Muslims kicked out the rest.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so they basically went into Europe and the other Arab Muslim nations that
So
were
it was
surrounding
just
Israel.
so it was just a very small population that stayed there. And
Yeah, probably where they couldn't really be found or whatever. But very, very small. They had no power.
okay, so and like again, this was a very long time ago. So, um, but it is fair to say that the Jewish population does have a claim to that land. Like
No, no, nobody has a
no,
claim to any land. I don't believe that. I
no,
don't. No, I don't believe that.
so that's not their motherland.
They believe. So the Zionists believe. Yes, I don't agree. I don't have to agree with everything the Zionists believe.
No,
I
this
don't
is
agree
why
with it.
I'm
Yeah,
asking because one, I want to learn too, and it's good to see like a different perspective than what the traditional Zionist belief is. To assume that like they were pretty much like invaded and you know what started off as a big Palestinian state is now like a corner, right? And it's like this little bit that they have left, it seems it's like
they could have had 50. They could have had 50% of it. They could have had all of it if they weren't. They could have had all of it if the Arab nations didn't attack in 1948. So if
Mhm.
anything, it's not really. I could even go as far as to say it's not really the Palestinians' fault or Israelis' fault. It's more of
Mhm.
the Arab League that attacked that area to try to gain that land for themselves. I would actually blame them more for the Nakba of
Oh,
1948 and when
right, right.
all of the Palestinians left. Yeah,
Hmm.
just that hate for just the Jews having any land for themselves. Yeah, I would blame that.
Okay. um oh yeah, that's something for me to think about. um I don't know if you and I will reach our goal today to you know agree on a solution that could possibly stop the killing and the violence. But I will walk away from this conversation um, not as not saying that I don't believe that there's an there's a excessive amount of violence being put on Palestinians now. I still think that Israel could have handled this without this level of violence, even like hypothetically, if they're trying to flush out Palestinians and just try to occupy more of their land, like I think you can do that without murdering so many people. No matter what, if it's children fighting with Hamas, at the end of the day, that's a very large number.
They try.
Uh,
I'm just saying. I would like to add. They tried. They tried to tell. They let everybody, all of people in Gaza know. Not maybe not everybody, but that the bombings are going to start. Go south,
mm,
and the people who were able to, they went. Some people were. I understand there are elderly people who could not move. I understand that, but there are also the Hamas who stopped some of the civilians from moving south, using them as human shields.
mm.
And
So
the problem is also some of the Palestinian people who are not Hamas, they're okay with using human shields because they're
some
sacrificing,
of the
they're martyring.
Palestinians who are not Hamas, so like
Yes. Yeah.
civilians
Civilians, they call
using
them martyrs. Yeah.
yeah,
They call them
using
martyrs. Yeah. I've seen the interviews. They were okay with using children as human shields, people who are not part of Hamas.
yeah, so like
Because, yeah.
yeah, so again, it's an awful thought to process, but again, we have to be realists, and I do know that happens, and sadly, it happens in a lot of Muslim countries, like that is definitely a thing. Um, so I have these feelings about what Israel's doing, and it's based off of, again, murder counts or body counts, and the violence that I'm seeing on TV. I feel that my argument is supported, and I'm not gonna, have this conversation and use that to support my statements now. What I want to do is this. I want to, if you're okay with this, but I want to come back and I want to present like, facts to support my statement, and like not just things that I've seen on TV and that have swayed me, but I want to do like in-depth research, and I want to also fact check some of the statements you made, and I think we can elaborate from there, because you made a few very interesting points that kind of not swayed the way I was thinking, but it definitely opened my mind and gave me a little bit of it gave me something to consider, and instead of just hate and violence, right? So what would I do if I'm Netanyahu or if I'm Israel and you've tried everything else? Honestly, before this conversation, I didn't think of it that way. I was just thinking, like they're murdering people, and that's what you see on TV. And I still think that is happening to a certain extent, and I think, with a little bit of research and, if I put some work into this, I think I can come back and maybe offer a potential, not solution, but at the very most, an idea of how something or something can get moving without this many people dying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I want you to know that the thing that I like the most is being wrong. I actually like being I try to put myself in positions where I could be wrong, where somebody could educate me. And I think that's why like I'm so obsessed with like finding some research, and maybe some of the stuff that like I said, it's not factually correct. The Pew Research on like the wanting like supporting terrorism attacks and the pay for slay thing. I looked that up. It seems pretty solid. But obviously that's for you to research also. I like it when people poke holes in my arguments too. I'm glad I know it's okay. Obviously we're not going to find a solution right away. I'm
No.
more than open to having a second interview.
Mm,
I like that right now you said your mind is like a little bit more open, and that's like that to me, that's like an expansion of consciousness, which is great.
mhm.
So I think that there's a lot of I think everything that you said was actually really cool. And even if you did have resistance to everything that I said, that would be okay too. I've had people who just like didn't change their mind on anything. That's fine also.
Right. And you know what? To be fair to you and to be fair to this conversation, my immediate surrounding it's I don't surround myself around pro-Palestinian people. It's just that I find that I'm in situations where, the discussion is leaning more towards that. So it's easy for me to get, wrapped up in those conversations. And listen, it's hard to go on social media and to see some of this stuff, right? I don't allow myself to view more than, a certain amount of videos because, selfishly it ruins my day, right? And I don't think it's mentally healthy to view that much violence. Um, but at the same time, there is a lot of propaganda there. And I do agree with you, Palestinians are good actors. And like, there was like some stuff that like exposed like, and this is like, it's not just petty, it's actually like disgusting. Um, there was this one video I saw where like the kid didn't know that he was being filmed and there was like blood on the sheet and then like he thought the camera was off and he got up and took the stuff off and walked away and I was like, oh come on man, like really, is this really what's going on? But I think that's just one isolated example, and I think both sides are doing stuff like that, so we
Two
just have
things
to be
could be true. There could be faking and also massive amounts of real death.
mhm,
Two things can be true. The other thing is we could feel so much pain for the actual thousands of deaths that are happening,
mhm,
but also understand the Israeli side at the same time. Both
yeah.
two things can be true.
And again, and like I'll say this once more before we end, and you really need to appreciate and understand the significance of these conversations. And if you can just, people need to listen to these discussions and to see what you're saying, right? Because like that girl you mentioned, her opinion, which is really disturbing for someone you would think that's raised or born in a Western civilization, to think that all white Jewish people are evil, like
It was
that is
more
fuck.
of sorry, it was well, she doesn't like white just to make this clear, she perceives all white people as like colonialist and the pro Israel people in Zionist in one class. So it's kind of two separate things. But she saw the Zionists as like I don't I think she said evil, but something of that energy, frequency, vibration, yes.
So again, I feel like the Zionist movement, I think, when it was initially created was I think that the concept and thought behind it was great because they were trying to stop anti-Semitism, right? They're trying to protect their people. I'm just afraid that and I'm sorry if Netanyahu is if you're a supporter, but I just think there's a certain level of comfort now, and a certain level of confidence and even cockiness where you just feel that you can do like whatever you want. You I think there's better ways to lead, and I think you can do that without such a high level of violence. But again, what I was trying to say before was what you're doing is very important because it's so easy for people like that woman to get swayed by these videos, like whether it's with Israel or Palestine. But you know, a lot of people are seeing and hearing Jew and Zionism and extremism, and they're not able to separate the difference. And I'm just afraid that it's just going to be the Jews are doing this, the Jews are doing this, and that is 100% false. Okay, the majority. Listen, born and raised in New York, I'm 40 years old. I have had most of my friends are Jewish and they don't live that way. They don't believe in violence and murder. And it's not that they're westernized, like they're strong they're into their faith very heavily, but you know you cannot associate people who live a peaceful life like that to what's going on over there. And I'm just afraid that, especially people who are, not educated well and who are just, really one-sided, is just to label all Jews and associate all Jews as a whole and Judaism as a whole with what's going on in Gaza, because that I don't think ends well for anybody, for the US or for Israel, because once the mob gets together and it's just hate, 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 it's kind of hard to get out of that. And that's what I'm hoping we can avoid more than anything, because there's a lot of people who are angry, man. It's like a lot of people are seeing a lot of death, and it's hard to explain it. And it's not everyone has the privilege that I have right now to have this conversation with you. And whether it's propaganda or not, but there's a lot of people who are very good at posting certain videos that show a lot of Jewish, not Jewish, I'm sorry, Zionist aggression towards Palestinian people, and it's causing a lot of anger, and anti-Semitism. It's not just in the US, it's worldwide. It's just freaking increasing daily. And I think Jewish people suffered and paid the ultimate price in the 1940s. And I just don't want to see them go through that again. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think something needs to happen now, and a solution has to be in the near future to prevent you know catastrophe. I'm sorry if
A
this
final
sounds
solution.
yeah.
Oh, I love. I use that joke too much. The problem with yes, anti-Semitism is on a rise, but it never stops with the Jews. That's what people don't understand. It's always the same people who hate Jews, they hate everybody else, including themselves. So the genocides happen not only to Jews, to themselves, to anybody who they feel like disagrees with them. The Nazis, they try to kill anybody who's not like them. Anytime a
Yeah.
genocide happens, that's the way it happens. So right now, the Jews are always just the first ones because Jordan Peterson said they're a successful minority. And those are always the
Mm,
first ones to
mm.
go. But
That's
then
a
everybody else follows.
wow, what a statement. They're a successful minority. Interesting, really interesting. Yeah, and you know what, I did some digging before our interview, and that's what you find online. And you know what, it's not stuff that I would want to use to support any kind of statement that I make, but when you try to research this stuff, this is what you read, and just briefly, and this is before all this conflict in Gaza. But for the average person who doesn't really put too much effort into trying to understand, and they go on the internet, they're going to read stuff like just a second, where was this? Hold on one second. There it is. From 250 CE to 1948 CE, 1700 years, Jews had more than 80 expulsions from various countries in Europe. So what this is saying is, in 1700 years, Jewish population was expelled from 80 different countries. So that's an average of one country every 21 years. And it's it's basically ammo for somebody to spread anti-Semitism, and to try and make an argument that Jewish people cause problems, and this is why they struggled throughout history. And I don't think with with this level of aggression right now, I think that's just it's not a good look. And I may be sounding extreme now, and maybe um I am too concerned, but nobody thought the Holocaust would happen, right? It's so far-fetched to think that that actually happened, to human freaking
It's
human
actually the
being.
norm. It's actually we're just getting better weapons to do it, but things like the Holocaust. That's the norm of human civilization. What we have in the West, that's very rare. What we have in Western society.
That's the norm, you said? So
That's the norm. That's the norm. Killing the Muslim expansionism. I think they killed 80 million Indians, just Indians. It's just there wasn't enough people to kill so many millions, but now we have so many more people. It's the norm to kill
okay,
as
so
many people as possible.
yeah, but what, okay, that statement you just made there. So that's a staggering and and a really troubling statement. That's a lot of people they murdered, right? But they can turn around and say, our religion is the fastest growing. We will be the dominant group, in the near future. So it's their actions, they can almost justify it to themselves, right? And do I believe in it? No. I don't think that anyone has a right to freaking do it,
Oh no,
do
that's not
what
what
they.
I'm saying. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying that's the way it like peace is rare. That's what I'm trying to say. A country that doesn't attack another, like
No,
that
but
doesn't
like,
try to genocide its
yeah,
own.
but
I'm
I
not
don't want
justifying anything.
yeah, but also, like the Holocaust, to say the Holocaust is a norm, I think that's a little strong, dude. Like
If you, it's not. I'm not gonna say. Okay, I'm not gonna say it's the
six
norm.
million people, man.
I'm
Like
not
that's
I'm
a
not
lot
gonna
of
say
people.
if you read enough history, it's gonna seem more normal. I'm not saying
Mm.
that you're not educated. That's not what I'm saying. Like if you look at Rwanda, if you look at what Turkey did to the Armenians, what countries want to do if they just
But
had
you're
the
looking at
ability
a
to do.
much larger scale, right? Like you're looking like your population pool there is a lot bigger. Like 6 million people from a religion that here, I got the numbers here actually. Just a second. Like you have to consider this. 1933, 9.5 million Jews in Europe. Okay. 1945, 2 out of 3 Jews are murdered. Like that's like
Maybe I won't say genocide is a norm. Let me say that it's more common than people think, especially if they read like if they read about other cultures, it's more common than they think, but it's not a norm. But violence, let me say, is a norm. Outright violence,
yes, yeah, I can
like
agree to
mass
that. Like,
violence, it's a norm.
but to certain levels, right? Like
Okay, I'll agree there. I'll agree there.
yeah, like violence, we're a violent species, right? My background, my family, they were from Bosnia, so like we experienced genocide, right? Um, I wasn't there. I'm American. I was born here, but like it's like it's it, it is something that like my family did like go through, right? Did it affect me directly? No, but it's like it happened, right? Um, it's I don't want to say that it's the norm. I don't think it should ever be
By
norm.
norm, I don't mean like it's a standard thing to do. I guess it's more of like we should not
Yeah,
be
yeah. I
surprised
just
that
don't.
these
Yeah,
things
I
happen.
don't want like the message like going out that like what's going on right now. Like that's just
Oh
casual
no,
business.
that's not
You
what I
know what I'm saying? Like,
that's
dude,
not what I meant.
like,
No,
yeah,
that's not what I meant. Yeah, that's not what I meant at all.
yeah,
It doesn't just because it's been normal in history doesn't mean that right now that should we should be okay with it. That's one.
right.
But the other thing, we have to also separate the difference between the genocide. I personally don't know if I would call it a genocide, but let's say for this example, we will. The genocide that Israel is doing right now against the Palestinians, it's different than the one that happened against the people of Bosnia, the Jews in Rwanda. It's different because um, it was, or like even if you take like Ukraine didn't bomb Russia. Russia just attacked. All the other ones, they didn't really bomb the other country. In this case, Gaza used um, Hamas
Mhm.
attacked Israel, but not only just once, they've been doing it for like decades. And I'm telling you right now, Israel is trying its best to kill, destroy Hamas targets. Civilians unfortunately died, because one, it's war, but the other thing is Hamas is not letting the civilians leave in some cases on purpose to get the world to be angry. So a lot of the anger is exactly
Yeah,
what they want. But
right. So
we,
this, yeah,
but it is. I'm just saying it is different because Israel could target civilians, real civilians, but but they're trying not to. In all the other genocides, they targeted civilians on purpose.
right. So like this is exactly like what I want to research more and come back to the table with like just more support. I think you do make some excellent points, but at the same time, you know I can't rule out at least like a little bit of like bias because you're Jewish, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so it's just like, but and again, I'm not saying you are biased. If anything, I think you're actually um like as neutral as you can be given the circumstances because you are open-minded, which I really respect. But just like there's a lot that you see that can again sway you to think a certain way. But I'm not going to rule out what you said either. You know what I'm saying? Because you are definitely more versed in this than me. You've spent a lot more time having these discussions than I have. And so I have to also, take that into consideration and respect that as well. So I'm going to try. I'm not going to say that I will be on par with you next time we speak, but I I will be ready to make stronger statements with some support, and hopefully be able to poke holes in some of the things you said, and if not, then poke holes in some of my theories. So why don't we say like a week from now we could have a second interview. I don't want to get paid. I think this is good. It's good for my mental health, and I think a lot of people can use this, man. And honestly, God bless you for having this platform. Um, I think that you're going to do a lot of it's going to do a lot of good for people who want to actually understand what's going on, and I think more people should actually have these discussions, and there should be more avenues for people to take advantage of this. But thank you for the invitation. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for not, jumping down my throat and forcing your opinions on me. This was a really productive conversation for me, at least. And I look forward to speaking with you again.